Hi guys, Hari here, casting another game in the Prodota2 North American qualifier for the 20,000 league. Actually with me this time is none other than the man himself running this organization, my co-caster for this game, Gino. Say hi.
Hey, what's up, guys?
You can all really appreciate very much all the work he does for Dota 1 and Dota 2 esports, and it's quite an honor to actually have him casting in this game with me. Should be able to provide a lot of insight, hopefully on the players or the matchups, etc. And meanwhile, in this game, actually, it's Army5 is the team. I think it's just Ar5 is what their abbreviation was in the brackets, playing against J4S. So some nice convenient abbreviations so that I don't have to say anything long or ridiculous. We actually watched J4S in the last game with a pretty convincing win using the shotgun morph strategy and just basically better lane setups along with what was their first pick tied. Although it wasn't actually first pick, it was second pick because the other team had taken winner over it. And Holy, you might want to mute your mic. But anyway, so we'll have to see if now that they have first pick, whether they're going to maybe go for that tied again, which looks like it might make it through the bans, or whether they have some other sort of strategy that they will try to set up here with the first pick. Also, we'll be interested to see if Syllabear ever comes into one of these games. He hasn't been banned or picked so far in either of the games that I've casted, and kind of interested to see hero with such a high upside, but a lot of downside as well, whether there will be any possibility of seeing him in one of these games. What do you think, Gino?
You know, I was watching some of these teams play. I've never seen Army 5 play, but I think in the last game I saw the J4S actually trying some sort of really cool push with the Morphling, and they were trying to protect the Morphling the entire time. But other than that, I'm just waiting for this game or this pick ban phase to unfold.
Yeah, so kind of like the old school strategy of the four protecting one that we used to see in Dota 1 a long time ago. That's pretty cool. Looks like, yeah, well, Tide and Windrunner both still in. Possibility of either of them being picked up at this point. As well as, well, I mean, that's pretty much the two most notable picks. And yeah, the Tide is banned, so I'm assuming this is just going to be an instant pick Windrunner first, unless they have some other strategy in mind. The thing is, Windrunner pretty much fits into most strategies, so I can't imagine why they would have picked anything other than the Windrunner. And that's what's so great about the hero. And actually, so far today, I've seen Windrunner in two games, and both games just amazing shackle shots from these players, actually. So hope to see more of that. It's always such a high excitement ability to see a good shackle shot coming out, knowing you're going to have a lot of action immediately following it usually. Um, Although, admittedly, I think the mechanic for deciding whether the shackle shot's supposed to latch or not is a little bit broken in Dota 2. It's kind of inconsistent with the range or the how wide it shackles at and the range it shackles at. But, hopefully that's something that will eventually be fixed a little bit, and then the hero might be a little bit more reasonable. As it is, it's probably a little bit overpowered, I think. Most people would agree. I mean, Shackle probably being the best level 1 ability in the game, maybe competing with Furion's teleportation.
You know, I've actually seen the Windrunner shackle shots do some ridiculous things. I've seen some range where it was probably half the lane, literally, and it's some broken stuff. So Lashrak and Queen of Pain coming out here from the Radiant side, Army 5, and Sand King actually getting picked, and Morphling as well.
Yeah, so it looks like J4S really do love the Morphling pick. Something in the previous cast I kind of ranted against. Generally, I'm a little bit distasteful of Morphling as a hero. I feel like he kind of has two openings. Before 15 minutes, he's very strong because he can waveform and play very aggressively, being able to morph strength and not have to worry too much about exposing himself when he dives. And, waveform does do a good amount of damage early on. But then basically after 15 minutes, he doesn't really do much at all unless he's really gotten a big advantage or unless he decides to go for the shotgun ethereal blade build. Which is always a bit risky, especially against heroes like Queen of Pain, who can output a high amount of magic damage. So we'll see, or well, and I guess I didn't finish what I was saying there because I'm sure someone would jump on me. Obviously, after about 45 minutes, he actually gets enough farm typically where he can actually deal damage if you go a normal build. So I don't like his kind of window of opening, but we'll see if obviously J4S is pretty comfortable running this hero, as Gino says, whether they'll be able to do something exciting with it.
I'm actually waiting on this pick here from Army 5. I almost forgot their name for there for a second, but it seems like they're going for some sort of push strat from what I've seen in the heroes. But let's see what they pick.
Yeah, I mean, push strat is one easy way to beat a Morphling. Like I was saying, a lot of teams focus too much on trying to kill the Morphling, which is obviously extremely difficult. Instead, basically, all you have to do is just kill the rest of the opposing team and then push the towers and just kind of ignore the Morphling. Which, yeah, would have made sense with the Leshrac. Although the Earthshaker pick, well, I mean, that works for a push strategy too. Having an Earthshaker on a team gives you a lot of like long-range initiation. Even without the blink, obviously, the Fissure is such a long-range ability that you can stun from far away. Leshrac has a quite long-range stun, and obviously having the Queen of Pain blink in, which is kind of the type of thing you need when you're pushing, because you have that kind of stall where the hero standing at the tower thinks they're safe, and then you stun, Queen of Pain blinks in and screams, and bam, yeah, the hero's dead, and now you can push the tower. So it could still work in the push lineup, maybe if they'll pick something along the lines of the Enchantress, which is still left, or Shadow Shaman.
It would depend on what they ban here next. I'm pretty sure they were watching the stream, so they might. I don't know if it's going to be one of those respect bans where they might go after that Broodmother because that happened to J4S last game where they picked it. But the Earthshaker's Echo Slime also for picking him in a push. It's actually really good, but actually I'm just waiting on this ban.
Yeah, the Broodmother, some heroes, or some teams, I guess, feel confident enough in the fact that the Earthshaker does counter the Brood rather effectively once he gets the blink, but until he gets the blink, the Earthshaker is not so strong against Brood, and Brood would have a pretty easy time. And, I mean, that could be, their desire to pick Brood could be further evidenced by the fact that they took Sand King, which is, the most obvious counter to a Brood. Sand King and Ty are the two heroes that are most usually used to kind of counter a Brood, and with both of those out, thanks to the early Sand King pick, maybe they're setting themselves up for a fifth pick or fourth pick Brood. Although Shadow Demon is still in the pool, although it would be a little bit more difficult to set him up in a lane for the Radiant, so I'm not so sure that they would take the Shadow King just to stop that Brood. And actually the Anti-Mage ban, so I guess J4S is kind of on a different wavelength than we are. We're thinking that Army 5 might want to push here, but it looks like J4S thinks that they might really be looking to go towards a much later game.
They actually banned the Crystal Maiden there, so I'm guessing that they really didn't want the mana regen to be a big factor, along with that Frost Nova bite build that really, really wrecks a lot of heroes early on. And I'm interested to seeing what they will actually ban, if they're actually going to ban Broodmother this time, or if they're going to ban something else.
And they banned the Vengeful Spirit, actually, so trying to take out all the strong supports here. And actually that basically is the case with Veno, CM, and VS all banned. They're going to have to go with maybe a less likely support, although then there's the Shadow Demon. I mean, Shadow Demon is very easy to forget as a support hero because he's not that commonly played as it, but it's actually very effective when you have a Sand King on your team. Obviously, the combo of disruptioning someone, put Soul Catcher up on them, and have the Sand King burrow strike in after they get out of the disruption is extremely effective, and especially with the waveform to follow up, that's just going to be a ton of burst damage. So the Shadow Demon is going to fit quite well into their lineup, and later in the game, this will allow them to, if they do decide to go with kind of a Manta Morphling, they can, Shadow Demon disruption the Morphling, get 5 copies of him all pushing down towers, which is going to be exceedingly difficult to fight against as Ar5 if they do opt into going more of a late game build. And speaking of late game, there's the Lich. Lich, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of Lich lately, but now I've seen him 2 games in a row. The first game, it wasn't really effective because they ran Lich in a tri lane, which is basically something you should never do. And I don't know, based on the lane setup so far, or the hero picks so far for Ar5, I'm wondering if they're going to do any differently this game.
A lot of their picks look like really old 48B picks from what I'm looking at, so I'm actually wondering if they're actually going to lane the ES, Leshrac, and Queen of Pain mid and all of that. It's kind of nostalgic, actually.
Yeah, and that is a very good point. Obviously, the Earthshaker to go with the Leshrac is a very classic dual stun lane, and then putting the Lich dual lane top with someone who can kind of farm a little bit, or you can put the aggressive dual top with the 2 stuns. Obviously, you generally like to have your Lich in your long lane, because his ability to deny creeps will give you a better chance staying in the long lane. Whereas when you deny creeps in your short lane, you're pulling the lane back to your tower, but the lane should already be at your tower, so it's not as effective. But yeah, the Lich dual lane support is very common, which is why these days when teams run Lich, usually we expect to see the Lich dual lane mid, which I guess is still a possibility here. I mean, their last pick could be for that dual lane mid with the Lich, and then they could set up, the Queen of Pain top, or the Queen of Pain, probably the Queen of Pain top and the Leshrac ES bottom, which is definitely a possibility at this point.
Oh man, I'm actually also having to see if anybody messaged me on IRC, but Okay, it
Sorry.
looks like the Pain and just Team Justice game is about to start as well.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, for those that know, I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. We are in the quarterfinals now, so getting close to the end of this qualifier, where it's going to matter a lot more to these teams whether they win. Well, I mean, it's always going to matter to these teams whether they win or lose, but getting that much closer to actually placing into such an important league should make a pretty big impact on how hard these teams are going to try to win the game and whether they're going to, kind of give it everything they have. Leave no aces up their sleeve. And speaking of nothing left, 3 seconds left to pick here. We're going to see what the pick is, and it is Lena. So, yeah, speaking of old school 48V picks, the Sand King Lena on the other side. What is going on here? Have we kind of like time walked backwards and watched some really weird stuff unfolding, some classic Dota 1 shenanigans?
Now I'm wondering if these guys on Army 5 are gonna go pick Spectre. We're gonna go about 48B as well.
Yeah, that would certainly be a possibility. Spectre, well, yeah, would do pretty well here. I mean, they've got a lot of early game presence already with, the Earthshaker, Queen of Pain, and Leshrac, so they could potentially support the Spectre here. And I mean, if Morphling decides to go into a farming game, Spectre will be perfectly happy to do that as well, and will just end up out-carrying the Spectre later on. So I don't know. We'll see if they do decide to go with that. But I mean, they might be afraid of what you were talking about, the kind of Morphling push that you said that J4S likes to run. Although that doesn't really look like exactly what they're doing here with these picks. But you never know. So the carrier is going to come out here, and it is a Riki actually. So deciding to go with the last pick, Riki. Riki a little bit more common these days, so that's at least a slightly less nostalgic pick. But well, Riki was actually popular a little bit before 48B, back when actually I remember Playmate used to run Gondar actually just to try to counter the Riki. I remember first seeing Playmate in that role back before he became famous. Or, well, he became famous basically for his amazing Gondar play. Anyway, so I guess we are probably going to see some dual lanes here because it doesn't look like there's a lot set up for tri-lanes necessarily on the Radiant. Maybe the Dire have more of a possibility for a tri-lane setup if they decide to go with the Shadow Demon solo, which is really how I like to see the Shadow Demon. Shadow Demon is such an amazing solo hero. Can set up so strong for ganking in the mid game with usually max level and Shadow Poison, which just does a ton of damage.
All right, and actually an update for you guys. Skill difference has won, and will be actually now that we're on the subject, the winner of this game actually gets to qualify into the non-pro league for sure. So anybody that top four is automatically in the non-pro league. What you're playing for is the qualifying slot for the pro league, which is the 20K prize pool.
Okay. That's good to know. I wasn't sure exactly how that works, so that makes it a little bit. Although that certainly puts all the more pressure to get that first place and to be able to, have a shot to compete for that 20K prize pool, which is just an insane amount of money. Really shows the kind of support coming out for Dota 2 and how interested basically everyone is in watching high-level Dota 2. We are going to have a pause here, which kind of unfortunate. Not a lot to talk about at this point, but I guess I will go over the heroes here and who is playing them. So for Army 5, we have the Earthshaker being played by Twill, Trayman on Queen of Pain, Parl LL, on Riki, is it Tavo? Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's Tayo or Tavo over his body. It was tough to see that purple letters. Tavo on the Leshrac, and a ridiculously long name playing Lich. So Gino, would you like to go over the Dire here?
All right, sure. So we have Rockstar playing Shadow Demon. We have Superman playing Windrunner. We have Pink Power Rangers playing Lena. We have FFS playing Sand King, and Radeon playing...
It will be the Morphling.
Oh yeah, it's Morphling. Whoops, I kind of just hit it. I'm like, wait a minute, what did he pick?
Yeah, he just picked his hero now, so maybe this will be the end of the pause. He was playing the Morphling for them in the last game too, so obviously standard their carry player. We'll have to see if he does end up going for that same build he went last time, which is the Ethereal Blade, or whether he'll go for a more carry farming oriented. I mean, he's got to be a little bit worried though. Riki comes online a lot earlier than the farming morph does, so maybe that will be enough to bait him into going shotgun morph, which, like I was saying in the previous game, is a lot more exciting to watch. And we'll have to see. Meanwhile, as far as the lane setups go, I would still imagine that we're probably going... I wish I'd paid more attention to the J4S hero players other than Radiant for who is playing what, where their lanes will be. But for the Radiant, I would still expect to see the Queen of Pain on a solo lane. I don't know. I don't think you would send the Riki Lich top, because I think you've got to assume that the Morphling Tri-Lane is going to be top, and there's no way you want to go dual lane against Tri-Lane with your carry. So I've got to assume Queen of Pain is going to be top, that you're going to put the... Oh wait, no, you wouldn't have the dual... Your dual stun is going to be... Yeah, it still wouldn't work. Well, Earthshaker actually can be decent when against a Tri-Lane. It makes it more difficult for them to get kills because you can throw out a good Fisher, but it would still be way too risky. It would be so difficult for them to farm. So I'm going to imagine that you're going to have Lich, Riki mid, Queen of Pain top, and then the Earthshaker Leshrac bottom. Meanwhile, over on the Dire, it's still tough to say. Like I said, I wish I'd paid attention to who the heroes or who the players were, but I imagine that we're going to have the Windrunner bottom, the Shadow Demon mid, and then a Tri-Lane with the Morphling top. And that'll allow the dual roam from the Sand King and the Lina. Obviously, that nice dual stun combo to set something up mid. If the Radiant Tri-Lane or dual lane's mid, that should still make it kind of easy. And Shadow Demon is actually a really strong hero going against a dual lane mid because he can sit so far back and really harass the opponents so effectively with even just 2 points in Shadow Poison.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm actually getting an update right now on the results. So I'm actually looking at the bracket now. So there's 3 teams now in the semifinals. So this is the last match for the semifinals. So like I was saying earlier, the team who wins this one automatically qualifies for the non-pro, which is the 10K prize pool. But now we have Skill Difference, who has beaten WeFlame Arteezy. So now the winner of this game will face Skill Difference in the semifinals.
All right, well, the last spot up for grabs here, so hopefully we have a pretty action-packed game to decide who does get to go on and who gets left behind. With probably 2 pretty decent teams here, and yeah, looks like the game is finally going to start, so we can see how these lanes do end up unfolding. The go call, all right, thank God. That was a long enough pause. And yeah, Lich this time, and last game the Lich did go level 1 Frost Blast. It's tough to call it Blast instead of Nova. Does have level 1 sacrifice here, so going to be doing the much more standard early sacrificing from the Lich to control the lanes and limit the experience the opposing team is getting. Meanwhile, 5 heroes for J4S running into the bottom here. Going to try to find someone, let's see, the Shadow Demon has, those could be solo items. I mean, level 1 Disruption is pretty much standard no matter where you're going in Shadow Demon, so that's not unusual, and obviously it makes sense when they're going for the gank here too. They can try to catch someone. The fact that they all ran bottom like this might indicate that they're going to send their Tri-Lane bottom, although, I don't know. I mean, their Tri-Lane is pretty strong. They have 2 range, and they have the dual stun with the Morphling. So it's certainly possible. Usually you send if you're going to roam to the jungle, like you might roam through your own jungle if you plan on sending your Tri-Lane top, because usually you don't want to have to move your Tri-Lane all the way across the map. You're much happier just moving your solo hero across the map. But not going to catch anyone here, and yeah, basically the lanes are exactly like I expected for the Radiant, so we'll see if the Dire ends up panning out the same way. It just kind of depends, although I guess, yeah, they're staying down here for a long time, so I have to assume this means that oh, no, I don't know. Yeah, I'm still thinking the Tri-Lane's bottom here.
From the last game that I saw, they actually smoked up to do this, so I was actually looking at their item build to see if they had Smoking Deceit. But I also was thinking that they wanted to protect the Lina for when she wards, because I thought that some of these other heroes were going to start protecting their creep spawns, but it didn't look like it was going to be the case.
And so, well, I was kind of wrong again. Well, I was initially right and wrong again. The Windrunner is end up soloing bottom, so they're going to move their Tri-Lane top. This is going to make them miss out on a little bit of experience here, having to run all the way across the map. Looks like they might be thinking about going mid, and actually no, I guess they're just deciding to send the dual stun mid. Yeah, I guess that's going to be the case. Knowing they're going up against a dual lane, opting to send a dual lane of their own, and I think the dual stun lane definitely is favored against the Riki Lich lane. I mean, obviously they're going to get less experience, but it's going to be really risky for Riki or Lich to come up very close to the creep wave. Because if they do, obviously the strong dual stun combo, especially once they gain a couple levels, is going to be able to output a lot of damage. And this is fine anyway, because with just the 1 support up top and Shadow Demon, he can effectively harass back the Queen of Pain and make her life a lot more difficult and make them have a much easier time farming and getting to those core early items. And yeah, so there's the Shadow Demon already up, getting a little bit of harassment. Meanwhile, not a lot happening. We've got a pull actually that did come out from the Earthshaker here, the Windrunner rotating over to try to get a little bit of experience and gold from it. It was a single pull, and yeah, it looks like he actually wanted to, well, it's actually counter-warded But I don't think they place a ward at the... No, they never actually tried warding the camp out. He did try to stack, okay. 'Cause I was going to say, pulling without stacking is a little bit unusual, so I guess that... Oh, and actually action going mid. Almost missed the first blood. The dual stun combo coming out, but just not quite enough damage yet, only level 2. Typically with this lane, you'd be communicating with each other and saying, alright, we go at 3, we go at 3. But I guess they just wanted to catch him unawares, so actually the Earthshaker is going to pull this time, not trying to stack. I guess what happened there, like Holy was saying, was that he did try to stack. He saw that he didn't get a stack, so he assumed that it was warded, which is why he placed down the sentry to counter ward. But actually, I guess he must have just slightly messed up the stack. It's so tough with the small Satyr camp, because those ranged heroes, or those ranged creeps, really don't want to come out of the camp, and that is probably what prevented it from stacking correctly.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing this Windrunner look back and forth inside this jungle. I think he's trying to pick somebody up, but I'm also looking at top, and actually they've been harassing this Queen of Pain for a little bit now, so she's been forced a little bit back. Mid lane, the Lich is up, but oh, Sand King actually whipping a stun there.
Yeah, Lich was actually way out of position there, and a great ward by the Dire here, getting vision up there. I mean, typically, when you're going dual against dual mid, you want to have some sort of vision for the lane, so placing a lane ward makes sense, and that good lane ward actually showed the Lich up there. If the Sand King had landed that stun, that would definitely be a dead Lich. And speaking of stuns, actually, Earthshaker has picked up an invis. I would think he would use this to come rotate mid. The Dire ward did see the rune, but it's such a small window of time to see that hero picking it up, so it's not certain that they would see him, because he's just stacking and pulling anyway. And yeah, they're definitely out of position here, so I imagine there's going to be a Fisher coming. Unfortunately, if you Fisher the Sand King, he's just going to burrow strike out anyway, so they're not really going to do anything. Yeah, I guess just going to wait a little bit longer, wait for the Lina probably to come up, and then hopefully land a Fisher, Frost Blast, smoke combo. Although actually no mana for Frost Blast on the Lich, unfortunately, so a little bit bad timing. I think maybe he wanted to go there. Invis is about to run out, so Earthshaker's going to have to, it's going to be now or never, and he's actually deciding to back up because he doesn't want to get caught out of position when the Invis wears out. Surprised he didn't Fisher there and just try to go for something. I mean, he has full mana anyway, and he wasted all his time. You might as well go for it. You've got 4 clarities, you could clarity back up on the way. I mean, even if you just stun, just to kind of put a little fear in their eyes. But opted not to. And meanwhile, both the solos against side lanes have had plenty of success. I mean, Windrunner and Queen of Pain both. Actually, Windrunner about to hit level 5. Queen of Pain still level 4, but getting close to level 5. And actually, Lich going for a haste rune doesn't quite get caught by the Lina, so he's actually going to be able to turn back around now, sacrifice a creep, and probably nuke a little bit. Surprised, actually, instead of just worrying about the Lich running out like that they didn't just try going for the Riki, just dual stun him and try to kill him while the Lich was out of position. But I guess they figured they wouldn't be able to get him in time. He'd throw smoke up and then just blink strike away or something.
And I'm looking at the Sand King's build, so he decided to go Caustic Finale, and it'll harass the Riki, so it'll stop the Riki from actually going into the lane because of fear of getting way too damaged. So that's why he's been kind of back, and he's trying to get some creeps down. So that's why kind of why they want to go for the Lich instead, so they'll force that Riki back with no farm. But I'm also looking at top, and we have a little bit of harassment, but looks like Queen of Pain will blink away.
Yeah, Queen of Pain has actually opted to go for 2 points in blink, really maximizing her survivability here rather than the slightly more typical 1 point in Shadow Strike, 1 point in blink build. Just so that she always has the cooldown and the longer range. Though actually she could be in a lot of trouble here. She's gotten a little bit aggressive, and she's actually blinked well. She's blinked into the side here, hoping to have some time. She actually does have enough for another scream, so if Radiant Waveform's in here, he could be in a lot of trouble. Queen of Pain, she screams, she's going to right-click. It's going to be close. Waveform is going to be enough to take down the Queen of Pain before she's able to take out the Morphling. And you really can't try to go toe-to-toe like that with the Morphling. You know he's just going to cheat every time and morph more strength. So a little bit of her... just too aggressive play there. I mean, Queen of Pain, you got to think her only job here is just to get experience and not die. I mean, you just, I don't know, sometimes I guess it gets to your head. You think, no, I got this. I can actually kill these people. Think I'm happy my team will be with me when I get a kill 1 versus 2, but then you die and then no one's happy with you except for the opposing team. Yeah, speaking of the Sand King build, I really do like that, getting that 1 point caustic, because if you notice what he's doing, he always makes sure he hits a creep. Like, it's not... Oh, actually, action going to go. Stun going to come out of the Lich. The stun should be falling from Lina. She's already used the Dragon Slave, but this should be enough to take her down, take the Lich down. Yeah, 1 more right click comes out. Meanwhile, though, the Riki is going on the Lina. Oh, Lina's going to health salve up, and the Riki is actually not going to be able to chase, and actually the stun's going to come back out on the Riki here. Riki could actually be in a lot of trouble. Bottling up on the Sand King. Sand King can have another stun in 5 seconds. The question is whether he will chase. I think he probably can. 2 seconds, 1 second, the stun's going to come up, and it is going to be the Riki's death. Riki tried to turn around and smoke, but he didn't get it in time, and the Riki does die. And meanwhile, the Morphling and Shadow Demon do pick up a kill top, so a nice early lead from the Dire. And what I actually wanted to say before I get cut off there with the action was that yeah, the Sand King was doing a really good job of always right-clicking creeps when they're like at half health or so, just so that even if he doesn't get the last hit on it, because of that buff to Caustic Finale where the debuff lasts 8 seconds now, it guarantees that the creep's going to explode anyway. It's not really a big deal. Like normally the reason you don't want to do this is because it's going to push the lane, and usually you'd rather control the lane rather than push it early on. But when you're in the mid, it doesn't really matter so much, and yeah, by doing that, it makes it really difficult for the Riki to hang around the creep wave, like you were saying.
So I was actually watching that battle up top, and what happened was Queen of Pain ended up teleporting back up top, and she actually tried to go for the Morphling again, but got way too aggressive and got punished for it hard.
I hate to see that. I mean, Queen of Pain has so much mobility, but if you use your blink to go in and try to get a kill, then you know you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Although the disruption is not an amazing ability at shutting down Queen of Pain, obviously, unless you have something like a Riki, because you know when you disruption her, if she's already blinked in, it's just going to buy her a little bit of time to get the blink off cooldown again. But obviously working out well enough. And yeah, speaking of Shadow Demon, he has opted for the max Soul Catcher build, which is pretty much the standard when you're in support. You're going to max usually Soul Catcher or Disruption, and Soul Catcher makes a lot of sense given how much burst damage they have. Oh, and actually missing a kill actually in the middle. Lina does go down when they dive the Riki, and Lich is trying to do a little bit of damage. Actually, if he'd used the Frost Blast on the Sand King while he's running through the tower, that might have actually been enough with the tower right clicks, but I guess it probably just come off cooldown. So 1-for-1 trade in the mid, but Dire's still got to be more happy with that, taking down the Radiant Carry one more time. He's really keeping Riki off that level 6, which he needs so badly to be effective. And actually, the Leshrac is trying to juke a little bit here. We'll see if there's some action come out. Sand King has a stun, but not a lot of health left, so he's kind of wondering what he's going to do here. Is sending himself, is that, yeah, actually finishes his Arcane Boots. I was wondering, since he has a shield, if he was going to consider going for a Vanguard, but no. Leshrac is going to run in here, trying to look for a stun. Earthshaker stun actually missing. Sand King's going to turn around and stun back in, and oh, he's going to get the ult off, and it's actually probably going to take down both the Leshrac and the... Oh, actually, the ES is going to go down to the Windrunner power shot, and so that's 2 of the Radiant down. The Leshrac did manage to take the Sand King first, though, which is kind of good because you get that kill spree ending gold, but still probably not worth it for the Radiant there, trading 2-for-1. Riki does have level 6 now, though, and he has decided to go for max backstab. So we'll be doing a lot of damage if they can just get a situation to set something up on one of the Dire heroes here in the mid. You would expect to see, now that he's level 6, Sentry's coming out actually to the Lina, but she just bought new Observers instead, which you can't really fault her for. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of money as a support. Although, what is she? She's 0-1 and 3, so I would actually think she would have more items than this by now. Maybe she's been buying wards for other lanes, and actually Sentry comes out. No, Sentry does come out for the Dire. I don't know how I missed that. So she does have the Sentry in the mid lane, which is exactly what you would expect at this point when you're in the mid lane duel against the Riki. And actually, oh yeah, action's going to come top. Queen of Pain just trying to loop around here. Shadow Demon's actually going to disruption himself. 3 from the Radiant here. The stun is going to come out. Lich ult actually coming out as well. And Earthshaker still has not managed to get the stun off. Riki does end up killing Lina in the mid meanwhile. They're going to chase down after the Sand King, but there's really not anything that's going to come out of it. He's going to burrow strike in 1 second, and he's just going to get away. Even when Queen of Pain blinks and screams, it's not going to be enough. Leshrac is actually, though, he's pinging, he wants to go. Meanwhile, Riki's actually chasing after this Windrunner. Riki could be in a lot of trouble here, though. Sand King missing the stun, misanticipating which direction the Riki would run, and Riki's going to keep just doing a little bit of damage. Thought the Leshrac might be able to land a stun. It's actually pinging, or the Leshrac is pinging, but nothing comes of it anyway. And they're both basically just going to back off.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to actually try for a mid, but the Sentry does see him, and there we go. So he does get caught, and he's forced to get out of there. The Ward will also see him. The Sand King is actually, looked like he was going to follow, but it wasn't the case. But now we have the Earthshaker actually coming mid for a gank now.
Yeah, the vision is going to be up thanks to that nice ward from the Dire, though. So they're going to see the Earthshaker rotating here, and they're actually just going to try to catch him out. Oh, great burrow strike from the Sand King. Should consider going to body block, but decides, no, I'm in a little too deep. My team isn't nearby. Not really worth it. But we are going to have a 4th TP in here. It is that Shadow Demon, and Shackle Shot is not going to latch, actually. A nice try from the Windrunner there, trying to use the range creep, pretty much standard. But as I was saying, with the Shadow Demon, usually as a support, you either max Disruption. Oh, and actually, Purge is going to come out from the Shadow Demon. No, actually doesn't even need it. Just uses one Shadow Poison, and Lina manages to pick up the kill with the Dragon Slayer from the side, as well as a Shackle Shot, although it wasn't really necessary on the Earthshaker. So Earthshaker just hanging around a little bit too long. Should have probably backed up from that spot after he saw them coming for him. He had to know there was a ward there, and looks like the Dire's going to continue to loop around on this Lich, and this Lich is just so screwed. There's absolutely no way he's getting out of here. Soul Catcher amplifying all the damage. So like I was saying, with a high burst damage team like this, with, I mean, basically every hero on their team just oozes burst damage. They actually lead, well, I mean, Shadow Demon's actually the least burst damage hero on their team, since he doesn't have Shadow Poison. But, I mean, with Lina, Sand King, oh, actually, poor coordination there, disruptioning a Burrow Strike target, but he's just going to die anyway. Maybe the Sand King should use the Purge, I know, and actually manages to, or Shadow Demon should use the Purge. Although, Morphling is actually in a little bit of trouble here, but he has enough strength already that he should be just fine. Oh, Sand King gonna get a huge epicenter off on 2 heroes here. Both gonna die. Shadow Demon finally actually still hasn't used the Purge yet, so he actually, yeah, he can Purge the Lich here. Although Lich ult's gonna fly. Nice reaction time from the Sand King there. Using smoke screen, or not smoke screen, sandstorm. Ricky using smoke screen, but just getting annihilated by the Lina. Didn't realize the Lina still had her ult up and enough mana for it. So 4 heroes down for the Radiant, and this is again looking pretty strong for the Dire.
You know, they actually went in there kind of one by one, except for the time that the Queen of Pain and the Earthshaker actually went in. So it was actually really unfortunate, and they were going to be out of position anyway because the Sand King had the Burrow Strike epicenter up, and all those other heroes were just way in position to actually do something. But when Radiant decided to walk up there, they just kind of just melted.
Yeah, and the Sand King actually 1,200 gold, so getting close to his blink. He hasn't even really needed it. He's done a really good job of getting some nice Burrow Strike epicenters into 2 heroes both times. Baiting out the stuns from the other team first, and then going in for the Burrow Strike Epi combo, rather than doing it backwards. It looks like they're actually going to try to go on this Queen of Pain. Ooh, Queen of Pain. Oh yeah, actually smart enough, does understand exactly what happened there. Nice job. Nice reaction from the Queen of Pain there. I'm actually really impressed. So she used the Scream on the creep wave, and she saw an extra ball of it basically go nearby, and she might have had her body blocked a little bit as well by the Sand King, so she knew exactly what happened, and the Hero was there. So she threw out the Sonic Wave, hoping to get the kill, and just barely didn't get it. I think the Sand King had like something like 20 or 30 health left, so really heads-up play there by the Queen of Pain. Impressed to see that, but unfortunately it didn't pay off, and her ult is going to be on cooldown now, especially not having the Aghanims obviously anytime soon, or certainly not yet. It's going to be a long cooldown to wait for. Meanwhile, the Ricky has rotated bottom, trying to get his farm up. It has the Poor Man's Shield as well as the Treads, obviously 7 agility at this point, and just hoping to farm up that Diffusal sometime soon so he can actually be effective here. Looking like he wants to go on this Windrunner. If Windrunner, if she was to run down the river there, she could have actually been in a lot of trouble, but smart enough backs up towards the tower and is going to be just fine. So Ricky's just going to force her off the lane and then go back to farming now. Meanwhile, we've got 3 heroes from the Radiant and 4 from the Dire here up top, so I assume some action is going to come out. Maybe the Radiant's going to back up in time, and no, Disruption just barely catching. Sand King going to come in from the side with a stun. Actually not stunning anything, completely missing, so kind of poor play from him. Meanwhile, though, Shackle Shot not going to latch anything. Power Shot missing as well. So far, actually just a non-exchange. Actually, not so bad for the Radiant there, considering they were Dire brought 4 up there. And meanwhile, the Ricky's just been able to farm bottom, and the Queen of Pains had been getting some farm mid. So that worked out pretty well. Basically, just kind of a fail from the Sand King there. Burrow striking to the Disruption illusions rather than the actual one. The illusion's fooling him just as much as the other team, but Sand King actually going to be in position now for the Burrow Strike there, but nice Fisher from the Earthshaker. Even though it didn't stun the Sand King, it made the Sand King realize that if he'd gone and Burrow Striked across, he would have been in a lot of trouble because he would have been separated from the rest of his team by that Fisher.
So nice entry put down here by Dire. They're just seeing if the Ricky is going to be coming in, but Ricky, he's still farming bottom. But the thing I would like to see from Radiant is to actually start warding where Ricky is farming so he can actually see where the heroes are going. And we're still looking at something top, and it looks like they do get the Lich, and the Lich will go down. Morphling actually getting that kill, but the stun going down on that Leshrac. Is he going to go down? I think he will. And there we go. So 2 heroes down for the Radiant team.
Yeah, finally the Dire does manage to get their pick up there. The Lich just a little bit, or was it the, yeah, I think it was the, yeah, there's definitely the Lich that got caught first. The Lich just a little bit too far forward, not appreciating enough that the range on the Disruption. Shadow Demon actually has opted to start maxing Shadow Poison. This is a little bit unusual. Typically when you're a support Shadow Demon, you max Soul Catcher, then Disruption, or Disruption, then Soul Catcher. Shadow Poison usually only maxed as Shadow Demon when you are in a soul lane. But here he's opting to go for it second. Just, I guess, just more long-range damage, which is kind of their team specialty at this point. They can do a ton of damage from long range, so he's just kind of deciding to exemplify that more. Not really caring about the more points in Disruption at this point. I mean, the cooldown doesn't matter that much. They're just going to use the ability in the first place to pick someone off, or to catch someone so they can pick them off. and they don't really care about the illusion so much since there's not a lot of right-click. And speaking of getting picked off, there's going to be a Sand King stun, Purge, stun from Alina, and one more hit. Actually, the Shadow Beam and Purge ends up just finishing the Leshrac off. Sand King, intelligently enough, backing off, didn't want to die from the Edict damage. The Leshrac doing the best he could. And meanwhile, the Riki is actually going on the Morphling bottom, but not really going to do anything about it. Riki is a very nice counterpick to Morphling, by the way. I mean, Riki generally very effective against Morphling, being able to throw that cloud on top of the Morphling, preventing him from waveforming out, and generally just being a nuisance. And Lich does have his ult now, which he obviously had that fight around, not necessarily at top, but around top a little bit while ago, kind of over by the Ancients top for the Radiant, and not a super effective use since he used it on the Sand King, so we'll have to see if maybe he can get a little slightly better ult off in the near future here, which could actually maybe turn this game around just a little bit, because if you look at the gold graph, it's actually a 5,000 gold advantage for the Dire at this point, which is definitely not so good, not something you really want to see. And actually, speaking of gold, let's take a look at what these people are actually doing with their gold. So Leshrac has gone phase boots. It looks like, based on the bracer, he's probably going to go Django or Drums of Endurance next. So it kind of makes sense going that max move speed build rather than going the Arcanes for more mana to go into Bloodstone. Push actually going to come from the Dire here on this tier 1 tower mid with the Catapult, just trying to do a little bit of damage, but a little bit afraid to commit here. Don't necessarily have amazing initiation at this point. Sand King does have his Blink though, actually, so they do have pretty good. Although Sand King with Blink is generally better counter initiation than initiation. Shackle Shot, however, is great initiation, and Sand King actually using a slightly unnecessary Blink there, but I guess you just want to make sure he was in range to get that stun, and yeah, instantly pop the Lich. Unfortunately, if the Lich gets caught out every time, you're never going to get that Lich ult to turn fights. So Lich kind of need to be a little bit more careful. Quidafane just going to scream a creep wave, and actually a call that might be a little bit laggy, so probably a pause going to come out here in a second, I would assume. And then continue to go over items. Not really much else to talk about. Queen of Pain finally finishing her power treads. Yeah, that's pretty much all on the Radiant. Lich actually has gone for Urn, slightly unusual, but I guess, I don't know. I would have been happy to see him going faster mech rather than Urn. When you're behind, getting an Urn isn't really going to help too much because you're not getting kills to get charges on it. Meanwhile, the Windrunner does already have the mech finished and a hood, so she's going to be quite difficult to kill. I hope that that's not going to be not a hood, a cloak. I hope that that's not going to be a pipe after the mech, because I really hate to see pipe and mech on the same hero. I mean, obviously if that hero gets picked off, it just makes it that much more of a liability because you're not going to have either of those important teamfight items. Other than that, obviously the Blink up on the Sand King, and then the Morphling, who is almost done with his Blinkins.
Alright, so I'm actually looking now at how many creeps these guys have farmed. So the Morphling is actually 74-21 on his creep stats, along with the Windrunner, who is actually the most farmed on Dire side with 75-10, or at least 75 creep kills. And actually on the Radiant, 55 on that Queen of Pain, and wow, their Leshrac is actually the most farmed on Radiant.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did have the dual lane with the Leshrac in bottom against the soul of the Windrunner. So, I mean, Leshrac basically had almost what you would call a free farm lane. Not really free farm because it's not like, Earthshaker can really completely harass the Windrunner out of lane or anything like that. But, I mean, at least an easy to farm lane. So you would expect him to have pretty good farm. Unfortunately, the downside, obviously, is that the Riki did not get good farm mid. Obviously, 46 is not very good at this point. It was dual lane against dual lane though, so it's not very easy, especially given the very intelligent play by the Sand King, leveling Caustic Finale early on, making it much more difficult for Riki to come in from near the creeps. Meanwhile though, the Dire is going to be rotating towards bottom here, trying to probably pressure this tower. They've taken both other tier 1 towers at this point. Oh, and actually the Queen of Pain does blink. Shackle Shot not going to latch. 1 second until the blink cooldown is going to be off, and she is going to make it out of there. Sand King probably not going to think about blinking and stunning after. So I was going to say, just wanting to take this last of the tier 1 towers that are remaining. And morphing a bit of agility here. Doing a good job of whenever he has a chance to deal damage to a tower, morphing up more agility so he can do just more right-click damage to this tower. Kind of what you were talking about using the Morphling in a push strategy. Although, I mean, generally not exactly what we think of it, but I guess it's kind of an underestimated thing about Morphling is that he does do a lot of damage to towers because he can, I mean, control how much his DPS is as long as he's not inferior of taking damage himself, which obviously, based on how much control they're putting on the map, is not too much to ask for. Meanwhile, though, the Radiant is going to try to counter push in mid if they can only just get a couple seconds with the tower with that max edict from the Leshrac. But it's just not going to happen. The Dire is already rotating up here, and the Leshrac, or the Lich, actually not going to be the one to get caught out here. Windrunner actually getting caught a little bit out, but the Sand King is going to come in, wants to stun, decides to stun the Lich eventually, isn't going to have a chance to get his epicenter off here, and it looks like there's a big lag spike there actually. Lich ult going to come out bouncing pretty well, actually going to bounce really well on the Dire here, so that's kind of what we were talking, or I was talking about. Queen of Pain going to get a scream, that's going to be enough to finish off the Lina, so far a 1-for-1 trade. However, the Leshrac does go down as well. Queen of Pain throwing out an ult, doesn't really hit anything, and does get right-clicked down by the Windrunner. Ricky thinking about continuing, but has to back up. Actually, the Sand King gets a great double stun after the blink there. Sentry actually comes out and reveals the Ricky. Nice heads-up play from the Shadow Demon there, and the Ricky is going to go down. Nice shackle shot from the Windrunner, although I mean, when someone backs into a corner of trees, not too hard to hit a shackle shot. I think I could actually hit that shackle shot, but that's saying something. I'm terrible with shackle shots.
So I'm actually looking at the way that Dire is warding this. So because they take down the tower so much, they've decided to ward around them even though the top ward is about to expire. So it's actually really nice to see that they want to ward everywhere that they can. The Radiant has decided to have to defensive ward now because they're way behind in this game. But it looks like we have a stun going down here on the Dire team, but nothing much going to happen. But it looks like that Leshrac is actually trapped. Actually, shackle shot going down on the Leshrac. He's attached to that Queen of Pain. The stun going down as well from the Sand King, but it looks like the Sand King... No, it looks like he's... No, he will go down. Never mind. I thought he was for a second safe there.
Yeah, a little bit of miscommunication there. The Windrunner got the shackle shot and was attacking. Oh, and actually, I guess a little bit too early to talk about that. Actually going to come here. Ricky is going to blink in, but doesn't actually throw out the smoke. Ricky really needs to smoke and then ends up smoking nothing, so... I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter because they actually are managing to get the kills anyway, although they almost were able to turn around and kill that Queen of Pain. Ricky's still a little bit out of position thanks to the Purge. Yeah, not going to be able to make it in there. Or it wasn't actually thanks to the Purge. Maybe it was. But that was actually the Soul Catcher that was on him at the end there. And Windrunner actually playing up. What is this Windrunner doing? Thought she could, yeah, maybe get the Lich kill, but didn't manage to. It ends up having to mech herself to run away anyway. But yeah, it was a little bit of miscommunication there. The Windrunner gets the shackle shot and is attacking the Leshrac who gets shackled up, and kind of saying, guys, kill this person, and then like there's no one reacting immediately, so the Windrunner just backs off, and once the Windrunner backs off, the Sand King's like, all right, I'm there, blinks in and gets the stun, and then the Windrunner's already out of position because she's already backed up, and so that just kind of made a little bit of messy engagement there, with kind of lacking a little bit of coordination from the Dire, but I mean, so far they showed pretty great coordination, so you can't really fault him for that slight mishap there. Sand King actually going for a Blink Burrow Strike on the Lich, misses, so decides, alright, whatever, I did this on purpose, I just wanted the creeps anyway, and is just going to continue killing them. Meanwhile, the Morphling is just farming up bottom, has 1700 gold now, so we'll have to see if he does end up going for that shotgun build, like he did in the last game. Actually heading over towards the shop now. I think you can buy a Ghost Scepter, no you cannot actually. I wasn't certain about that. Ghost Scepter's an item I don't pick up very regularly. And actually Windrunner getting a nice shackle shot on the Queen of Pain here, using Focus Fire. Queen of Pain should be able to blink, I assume. Will blink somewhere, and no, just is going to die instead. Windrunner getting a pretty smart power shot there. Queen of Pain had the blink cooldown up, but I guess she was afraid of just if she blinked, she would probably get power shot wherever she was, so decided to try to run into the woods first, and then blink after maybe dodging the power shot, but didn't really work out for her. And Hood is up on the Windrunner, so I'm afraid that we are going to see what I was talking about that I really hate, the Hood, or the mech pipe on the same hero. But, I mean, I guess it's better to have it than not have it at all. And actually, Sentry Ward is going to reveal this Windrunner here, but the Windrunner is not even the least bit afraid of this Lich. There's basically nothing this Lich can do to harm him. And meanwhile, actually, Lina manages to pick up the Ricky kill bottom. This is a Dire Sentry? Yeah, this is a Dire Sentry placed down there, so placing down the Sentry to get the kill. That was actually the Shadow Demon, I assume. Oh, and meanwhile, I'm actually missing action mid. Morphling is just manning up basically on this entire Radiant team here, going 1 versus 3. Windrunner comes in and is able to help out. Windrunner does have the mech, so if Morphling actually just heads back down here, we'll be able to mech him up. I assume Windrunner will use the mech soon. Sand King is actually going to stun the Leshrac, I assume. Yeah, stuns the Leshrac. The Shackle Shot's going to latch. Nope, not actually going to need the Shackle Shot. Shackle Shot now actually able for the Queen of Pain, but the Queen of Pain did move enough. It wasn't actually latched the tree. Lich Ult is going to fly, but good split from the Radiant. Not actually going to kill anyone. And then Queen of Pain opting to blink back in on the most questionable hero, the Morphling, the hardest one to kill, and so he's going to die. Lina is actually going to try to burst down this Earthshaker, but actually with only level 1 ult isn't going to be enough to finish him off, and they're just going to Arcane Boots up as a group, and then try to push down this tier 2 tower here.
Okay, so what happened bottom when the Riki got killed, basically 3 of the heroes on Dire were smoked up. They were trying to pick off heroes in the forest. They noticed that the Riki was actually farming, and they decided to go pick him off. I'm wondering if this Lina is going to actually lay out on that ward on the big place with the there we go.
Yep.
Very nicely done. And
yeah. Oh, sorry, go.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, it actually, Valve has even made it easier for us to talk about some of these ward spots, even though we can't ping, with the conveniently placed, or randomly, quote-unquote, placed eyes, which usually denote ward spots, as in this case, or the one over by Roche, etc.
Alright, so it looks like Dire is just going to... I think they're going to go Roche now, since they're in such a big position. A good position to do it.
Yeah, double damage rune is going to make this really easy. Yeah, Morphling is actually going to pick up the bottle for the Sand King, and I guess grab the double damage with the Sand King's bottle, and then use it. Okay. That was a little bit weird. I expected the Morphling would grab this double damage, or that they wanted to put it in the Sand King's bottle first to refill the Sand King's bottle, and then have the Morphling grab it. But instead, the Windrunner just says, "Alright, screw you guys. You're taking way too long. I'm taking this." But the Radiant is actually going to have time to come react now, and maybe we'll be able to do something here. Unfortunately, Lich is not quite there yet, and Lich actually doesn't even have the ult. Actually going to come down. Big smoke, actually, but the epicenter just completely annihilates the Radiant. Great smoke from the Riki, but it was not enough. The Sand King was able to start up the epicenter. Oh, and the Queen of Pain actually going to go down on top of the hill, trying to be a human ward, and Lich is actually going to get chased down to the Sand King. Sand King going to have mana for stun in 1 second. Stun actually not even necessary. The Morphling just finishes them off. This Morphling just getting a ton of kills, and now they're going to go back and actually take Roche for real now. So despite a nice smoke from the Riki on a good choke point, I mean, you have to know as the Radiant, you cannot, I mean, this is just a general rule of Dota. As the Radiant, when the Dire baits Roche, or goes Roche or whatever, and they move out when you come, and they run up that hill to the right, you do not follow. You never follow. Especially against a hero like Sand King. So, I mean, even though the Riki was able to do as much as he could by landing a good smoke on the choke, it just doesn't really matter when the opposing team has much more effective ability when you're grouped up in small spaces like the epicenter.
So all these heroes are actually low on mana. I'm guessing they're going to go back, buy their items, and then probably just push it. They do have such a big advantage. They can actually see what the Radiant's doing a lot of... Like, if Queen of Pain decided to go jungle right now, where that ward is, they'll see her and they'll probably attempt a gank if they really wanted to. Even though they're kind of far, but I mean, like, if other heroes decided to go in there as well, they can go attempt it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having such a strong advantage means that you can place up these really aggressive wards, and you make it really difficult for the opposing team to get back in the game. Because you know that when you're behind, you're going to basically farm your lanes as long as they're maybe... Because like, if you think about the lanes as being like a 100% spectrum, when they're about, on your side, 25%, like so 3/4 of the way towards your base, you farm basically at that point, and then you farm your jungle. It's kind of the way you try to get back in a game. And by placing wards like this, you make it really difficult for the opposing team to farm their jungle, which just kind of cuts off that avenue. And actually, a Veil picked up on the Sand King, I'm just seeing this now. So he had actually bought the Ogre Axe, or the Ogre Club, which might have been going towards Aghanims or BKB. It's always tough to say. Maybe the BKB with all the AoE stun, disable, and silence from the Radiant, but ends up going for the Veil instead. Veil actually a little bit more cost effective for increasing DPS with his ultimate than the Aghanims is, but then at the same time it doesn't always work, so it's kind of a tough call either way, whether that or Aghanims is a better choice. And meanwhile, actually, speaking of item choices, the Morphling, I wanted to talk about what he's going in. Just has finished up just the Ethereal Blade straight up. So going the exact same build as last time, Lincoln's into Ethereal. I gotta say I'm happy to see this. Very ballsy play. I mean, obviously he has the Aegis now, so it's pretty easy. But I think since he just had 3,300 gold, I think he'd already bought the Ghost Scepter on the Courier, even before picking up the Roche skill. Although I don't know, I'll be interested to see. I mean, well, I don't want to say that they're going to win the game, but with a 20,000 gold advantage at 28 minutes, they're pretty well in the lead. So if they do go on to win this game, and I get to cast them in the next, I'll be interested to see if the Morphling does opt for a shotgun morph build in a game where they are not leading by a ton, because it's very easy to go for kind of gimmicky nuke builds when you're ahead. Like, I mean, the more typical thing that people do is buying the Dagon when you're winning, but when you're kind of at parity or behind, I'll be interested to see if he still considers that a good idea, or if he'll go for maybe a more farm-oriented build. Although, like I said, I'm very happy with this. This is the only way I really find Morphling to be an acceptable hero, is with going this shotgun build. So he's certainly making me a little bit happier. And the Diary is going to try to pressure this tower down here, just using Shadow Poison waves to kind of get vision and nuke down the creep wave also. And meanwhile, when we're actually caught a little bit behind, but it doesn't matter. Sand King going to channel the epicenter, and this is going to be big. The Radiant actually not doing a terrible job of grouping up here. Actually, Disruption was what I thought it would hit 2, but it actually only hit 1 because of the Disruption, but it doesn't even matter. I mean, poor coordination from the Dire at this point. They're just way too far ahead, and 4 heroes are going to go down. So yeah, I was wondering about that. The Shadow Demon actually Disruption the Earthshaker right as the Sand King was blinking in with the epicenter blink combo. So kind of poor coordination there, but it just doesn't even matter. The Radiant, I thought, would do a better job of splitting, because they had to see that epicenter channeling. It is daytime, so they had enough vision of him when they caught the Windrunner up there, but just didn't quite react in time. Ricky coming and throwing a smoke up. It doesn't really matter. The Dire's just going to basically move out of it, finish taking this tower, and probably take Rax, or not probably, certainly take Rax afterwards. And the question will be whether they will go mid after or not. Yeah, best of 3 calling out. Call coming out from Yellow. Unfortunately, this is a best of 1, so he will have no such luck. Morphling using the shotgun build to best, his best advantage. Shackle Shot going to come through, latches this Leshrac. Veil actually coming out from the Sand King, as well as Pipe for his team. So, yeah, Morphling, one more hit, and does manage to take up the Lich as well. And yeah, Earthshaker is going to go down as well. Morphling has morphed a ton of agility, so it's just putting out a ton of damage. And the disconnect comes out from the Lich, which is going to signify, yeah, the GG calls. And that is going to be that. So another basically stomp by J4S, who's been playing extremely well in these last 2 games that I've watched. I guess what Gino says is their kind of standard Morphling play.
Yeah, and actually their opponent next is going to be a skill difference, one of those teams that are really prominent in the Sunday Evening Cup series. They also participated in, I think, in some of the other qualifiers, the It's Gosu Monthly Madness thing, where they got pretty far before getting hit by one of those really tough teams. And they were actually in the Dota Brawl qualifier as well, if I remember that one correctly.
Yes, they were.
It's only losing out to, I think it might have been AL or CLG. I keep forgetting.
I don't remember, but I do remember they did make a very good showing. So yeah, it should be an interesting game with 2 top-tier, well, not top-tier, but top-tier, certainly at this level of skill, or at this level of play teams, I mean, playing qualifiers and such like that. So should be a really good game with a lot of high-level play, and I'm really looking forward to getting the opportunity to cast it coming up here soon. So again, thanks to everyone who watched this game. Thanks to the teams who participated and gave us a good show. Maybe J4S giving us more of a show than Ar5, but it is what it is. And again, for those of you who have not done it already, you can follow us on Twitch. It is twitch.tv//Dota Live. Check out our Facebook or Twitter for more following of us, etc. Not that I really care. Well, I do care, but I don't want to say I don't, but Holy will certainly be happier with me for plugging these things. And again, thanks to the Prodota2 tournament for letting us cast the qualifier for their league. And that's basically it. Gino, anything else you'd like to say before this game's over?
You can follow me on Twitter at GGNetGeno, and if you like YouTube a lot, maybe you want to subscribe. I am giving away some beta keys if you are a subscriber that decides to refer his friends. So that's going to be youtube.com/GenoGaming. And we're just going to be waiting for the next game, so all of you guys can watch that one as well.
All right, well, thanks for casting this game with me, Gino, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next game.